Nestled in the heart of the Indian Ocean, Sri Lanka is a land of breathtaking landscapes, ancient traditions, and mysteries waiting to be unravelled. But what makes this island truly unforgettable? Well, from astonishing wildlife encounters to shocking historical wonders, this is not your typical travel destination. But first, do you know hotels are not really hotels in Sri Lanka? At least not every time. Let's go. Number 1. Hotels aren't hotels. In Sri Lanka, when you get a cab, don't just tell the driver to take you to a hotel. This is because you might end up at a restaurant. But it's not because the driver doesn't know where he's going. You see, in Sri Lanka, hotels aren't just establishments you spend a night at. They include restaurants and cafes. It's really just a cultural thing and nothing more. It's believed that hotels had the best restaurants and bars, so they could win customers over, as these extra features were a big factor tourists and hotel goers considered before lodging at a hotel. Because of this, restaurants and bars started adding hotels to their name for the same purpose, to appear enticing to customers even though they didn't provide a place to stay overnight. As time passed, it became a common thing for restaurants to be called hotels, and everyone in Sri Lanka kind of went along with it. So, if you're looking for a place to spend the night, always specify the type of hotel you want to go to. Now, since we're on the topic of things that don't seem like what they are, when next you're looking at an elephant, there's a high chance you're looking at a beauty model. Number 2. Plus-size models. Yup, there's a revered beauty pageant that's not for humans or even domesticated animals or pets. Instead, it's for the largest land mammal, the elephant. That's right, there's an annual event in Sri Lanka made to judge and decide which elephant is the most beautiful. This is not a circus act or a mere spectacle, but a serious pageant where people cheer on their favourite elephants to win. Held as part of religious festivals like the iconic Asala Perahera in Kandy, the Elephant Beauty pageant is more than just a spectacle. It's a celebration of the deep bond between Sri Lankans and these magnificent creatures. The pageant is judged on criteria as unique as the event itself. Elephants are evaluated for their majestic presence, well-groomed appearance, and how gracefully they carry their ornate decorations. Who knows, if Sri Lanka ever hosts the Olympics, maybe elephants would like the flame. But as far as sports go, the favourite sport of the island is not what you might think. Number 3. The national sport is not what you think. Now, you wouldn't be wrong to assume that everyone in Sri Lanka is obsessed with cricket. Culturally, in this part of the world, that's the sport that everyone loves. But unlike its neighbours India and other South Asian countries, Sri Lankans are fixated on another sport, volleyball. Volleyball was played in Sri Lanka as far back as the First World War, when it was still called Ceylon. By the 1920s, there were volleyball clubs all over the country, and before the turn of the new century, it was declared a national sport. So, although Sri Lanka does have a cricket team, it's their volleyball team that most families watch patriotically. And you're much more likely to catch a group of kids playing volleyball instead of cricket. Number 4. There's a lot of tea in Sri Lanka, but it's not gossip. Sri Lanka may not have the letter T in it, but it sure does have a lot of tea in it. A lot of European colonial powers have been to Sri Lanka, like the Portuguese and Spanish, but it was the British who really left the biggest mark on the island nation. But when James Taylor planted the first tea plant in Sri Lanka in 1852, he had no idea that he would give the country one of its biggest exports 2 centuries later. In 1995, no country was exporting more tea than Sri Lanka, with a quarter of the world's tea coming from there alone. In 2014, 12% of the country's GDP was from tea. Popular brands like Lipton have their tea leaves from Sri Lanka. One major reason why they export so much tea is the quality of their tea leaves. It's one of the cleanest tea leaves in the world, with the least amount of insecticide or contamination from pollutants. A good reason for this is that Sri Lanka doesn't play when it comes to keeping nature intact and flourishing, because the ecosystem of Sri Lanka is one of the most diverse in the world. Number 5. Plenty of species for a small island. Now, if you ever want to experience a true variety of plant and animal life in the same space, Sri Lanka is just the place to go. There are over 4,000 species of flowering plants and about 1,000 different species of animals, including fish, birds and mammals. To put that into perspective, India has a biodiversity index of 5 species of flowering plants per 1,000 square kilometres, but Sri Lanka has 62 species of flowering plants per 1,000 square kilometres. Sri Lanka may be small, but has a mighty wide range of wildlife for an island its size, and it's going to stay that way for a long time with so much of the natural scenery left untouched. Not only are there lots of national parks and reserves, but they cover about 1/10 of the country's landmass with buffer zones that stop human activity or encroachment within a 2-kilometre radius of the reserves. But if you really want to appreciate the beauty of nature in Sri Lanka, then there's one place you have to visit. Number 6. Adam's Peak. Rising majestically above the Sri Lankan landscape is a peak shrouded in mystery, spirituality and breathtaking beauty. Adam's Peak, or Sri Pada as it's locally known. This sacred mountain stands at an impressive 2,243 metres, but its significance reaches far beyond its height. It's a spiritual beacon, revered by multiple faiths with a mysterious footprint-shaped impression found at its summit. For Buddhists, the footprint belongs to the Buddha. Hindus see it as Lord Shiva's mark. Christians and Muslims revere it as the footprint of Adam, the first man. This shared veneration transforms the mountain in a symbol of unity, a rare and inspiring intersection of faiths. But if you still think there's nothing spiritual or godly about Adam's Peak, wait until you see the sunrise view from it. As the first rays of light break over the horizon, the mountain casts a perfect triangular shadow across the landscape. This ethereal phenomenon leaves climbers in silent reverence. For many, this is not just a view, it's a spiritual awakening. And speaking of spirituality, one of Sri Lanka's many blessings are its bodies of water. Number 7. Hydropower. Its many waterfalls and rivers aren't just for scenic pictures. The Sri Lankan government has made sure to use nature's blessings to its full potential, and that's why there are various dams throughout the country. As a result, these dams provide more than half of the country's energy needs. No other country has this much of its electricity produced from hydroelectric sources, but it's still not enough for them. By 2030, the Sri Lankan government aims at having 70% of the country's power coming from hydroelectricity, and by 2050 achieve net carbon zero. Given where they are now with things, that's very possible. But do you know what else is shocking about Sri Lanka? How about going a whole month without walking to a bakery? Number 8. A bakery on wheels. In Western culture, it's the milkman who goes around delivering bottles of milk to households. But that's not much of a thing anymore like it used to be. And being a staple of Western retro culture, it's not found in other parts of the world either, especially Asia. However, in Sri Lanka, some people go around delivering an essential commodity that's made with milk. But it's not ice cream as much, despite how convenient that would be in a hot tropical region like Sri Lanka. It's actually bread trucks called chunpan. Chunpan translates to English as literally music bread. Just like ice cream trucks, they play a distinctive tune to let people know in the neighbourhood that they're around. The tune is actually one that everyone knows, Beethoven's Für die Elise. These chunpan trucks normally start operations as early as 6:30 in the morning, and if you miss the truck, you don't have to worry. They'll still come back at the same day, just in the afternoon. Who needs to go to a bakery when a bakery on wheels visits twice a day? Number 9. Poya. Poya is to Sri Lanka almost what St. Patrick's Day is to Irish people, a celebration that, although religious, gives them a strong sense of identity. With over 70% of the population being Buddhist, this makes the Buddhist celebration a national one where holidays are observed. For Sri Lankan Buddhists, Poya is more than a holiday. This sacred day offers a chance to step away from the material world and reconnect with core spiritual values. Businesses close their doors, the sale of alcohol and meat is prohibited, and a peaceful hush envelops the nation. It's a stark reminder of the country's commitment to mindfulness and respect for its Buddhist heritage. But Poya isn't just a public holiday, it's a series of holidays. It's celebrated every full moon, so there are up to 12 Poya days in a month. But a monthly holiday for the same festival isn't the most astonishing thing about Sri Lankan culture. Number 10. Shaking your head means yes. It's a globally accepted gesture that when you shake your head, it either means no or yes, depending on the direction of the nod. But in Sri Lanka, if you want to agree with something, nodding is not the way to go. That's because shaking your head at all is considered a way of agreeing with something. A head waggle, which means no in most cultures, is yes in Sri Lanka. Imagine being offered a drink and you don't want it, so you start shaking your head, but someone assumes you actually want the drink. But don't worry, you can always just tell them verbally that you actually meant no. And you don't have to learn Sinhala or Tamil to get your message across, because Sri Lanka has a literacy rate of 92%. This is the highest in South Asia. So there you have it, 10 astonishing things about Sri Lanka that make it unforgettable. What did you find most shocking that you didn't know before? And will you be visiting soon? Let us know in the comment section down below. And remember, don't shake your head to say no if you find yourself there.